and Craig Smoak.
Max Olson starts this 4 o'clock hour, theathletic.com, with a lot of different articles. He does what he does, covering college football, the transfer portal, and more. Max, thanks for your time. Your thoughts about Tyler Buchner to Alabama?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I talked to some folks in the SEC last August who wondered if Alabama would try to take a transfer quarterback going into 23. And certainly, back in the winter, if they had taken a Sam Hartman or somebody like that, would have been a big statement. Instead, they go through spring with 4 pretty inexperienced guys. Obviously, we got a little bit of a glimpse of what Jalen Milroe can do last year, against A&M. And it's hard not to interpret this as a statement by the new OC, Tommy Rees and Nick Saban, that they're maybe not the most confident about what they saw in spring ball and what, kind of their situation there, their 2-man battle. I don't know if that means somebody got hurt. I don't know if that means they don't feel like Jalen Milroe is kind of taking those big steps that they need to see as a passer. But, certainly the relationship that Tyler Buchner has with Tommy Rees, he wouldn't have gone to Alabama, I don't think, if he didn't feel like he liked his chances of being the starter there. So, super, a little bit surprising. I wasn't surprised Tyler Buchner went in the portal. I thought he'd probably go somewhere where he could start, and he feels like he can do that at Bama. And so I guess we'll see in the next few days if Jalen Milroe or somebody else is trying to go in the portal before this window closes on Saturday.
Yeah, it's got a pretty tight window. And look, they've got 4 guys that are not Tyler Buchner. 2 of them are true freshmen. So just math tells us that 2 of those guys will eventually be in it, whether it's before Saturday or sometime after next season.
Yeah, and I wrote the story a few months ago about just how many of these top 50 quarterbacks end up transferring, and Alabama has really been one of the few outliers in this. They've had a very steady progression from Jalen Hurts to Tua to Mac Jones to Bryce Young, and obviously the backups end up transferring and stuff, but they've had them and Ohio State. It's been kind of very steady, very easy for them, and this is I think maybe the first year in a while, maybe since they had Blake Burnett and freshman Jalen Hurts in that whole decision, I think in 16. It's been a while since Alabama had a little bit of uncertainty at that position. And so I don't know if that's a bad sign that they're taking Tyler Buchner. And then certainly, what do you feel like you can get out of him? I mean, we only saw him start 3 games last season. This is not a guy who has that much playing experience. So, that's a very interesting move.
Max, there's a lot of players like Tyler Buchner. He wasn't going to be the starter, and Alabama had a need, and it's understandable, that he wanted to play, and that's the case for a lot of guys in the portal. But there was a guy this week who was absolutely going to be a starter and a huge part of what his team was going to do, and that's Alton McCaskill down at Houston. He elects to transfer. Dana Holgorsen commented pretty quickly. He was clearly caught off guard by it and a little bit disappointed, but wished McCaskill well. We haven't seen him play in a while because he's coming off an injury 2 years ago. But what are your thoughts on that move and any potential landing spots?
Yeah, pretty surprising for sure. Alton McCaskill, really good in 21 as a true freshman. He's a freshman All-American. He's the Rookie of the Year in the American Conference in that year when Houston won 12 games. And, it's been a process for him, obviously, coming back from the torn ACL. And I think from what I've heard, they feel like he'll be 100% this summer. But certainly they didn't see that coming. They felt like he was, they thought he was pretty happy there. And, I think that this is one of those deals where we'll see where he goes. But clearly you saw that he was linked to Colorado right away before he even popped up in the portal. And so, he has a few teammates who are supposed to go visit Colorado this weekend. I think the Buffs definitely need him. They need him. I think they only have 3 running backs on the roster right now who are on scholarship. So I could see him going there. I know Florida and other schools have come in and offered, but that would be a big get for Colorado if they can pull it off. And need him to stay healthy certainly, but we've seen the upside.
How fast and furious do you expect some of these guys over the next couple days to happen? It might be almost minute by minute, Max, because the window is closing, and some of the bigger guys like Alexander and the kid from Wyoming are off the board now, and Tyler Buchner moved on and made their choices.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, especially like if we all kind of understand there's probably some tampering going on behind the scenes on some of these situations. So are there going to be some surprisingly like big names that kind of ghost their team and pop up in the portal here at the last minute with this deadline? like we did see with Jordan Addison last year. You definitely wonder about that. And then obviously, these players are going to have to find a home really quickly. Not just because, you have summer workouts and all that kind of stuff, but it's just going to be a very fast moving process. I think there's just so many. I think there's 500 probably uncommitted guys in the portal right now who went in the month of April, and there's probably going to be a lot more. There was already a bunch more today. So I think these guys that are going in, a lot of cases they're players that are maybe they lost out for a starting job or they just haven't been able to see the field and stuff like that. But certainly these guys that go in with experience and can and have proven it a little bit, they're going to have a lot of schools fighting over them and a very fast decision to make.
Max, what were your thoughts about Baylor's pickups? Where did you have, I'm not saying up top, but with what they had, the defensive lineman from Oregon, Ma'ai, and also with Byron Bonds coming in from Utah State?
Yeah, I have heard good things on both. Byron Bonds was a guy that really couldn't get on the field at Texas and then went to Utah State and really showed out as a pass rusher and was really impressive for a defense that had a lot of great players who've gone to the portal and have gone to Power 5 schools and stuff like that. So I think that's a kid who, and you see this a lot. You go to the bigger school, you get behind a few guys, you kind of aren't getting on the field, and so you feel like you got to take your talents elsewhere just so you can earn some playing time. And I think you saw with Byron Bonds, a guy that can definitely get after the passer. And so I think that was a good pick up, a kid that is going to work his butt off to prove that he can play in the Big 12 and deserves to start. And then, I think up front, like whenever you can find those kinds of guys, especially ones who are leaving the Power 5 schools like that again, maybe they just got blocked a little bit or just had a setback here or there. I think that's usually going to be a good get. And honestly, when I talk to personnel folks right now, I think everyone I've talked to is looking for one defensive lineman, right? Like you always want to try and find those extra guys up front that can give you depth and make you better.
So anything in particular tonight with the draft that is a storyline that you might be covering or at least more interested in than others?
I think we're all interested to see how the quarterback situation shakes out and, where does Stroud go? Where does Levis go? Who takes Richardson? How high does he go? And, certainly enjoyed watching Bijan Robinson these past few years. Very curious to see kind of how high someone is willing to draft him because I think he's worth it. I think he's one of the 5 best players in the draft probably, but people have a hesitation about drafting a running back in the top 10, obviously, at this point. So very curious to see kind of where he ends up.
Final thing. Chuck Carlton, the news, as someone who's a writer as yourself, Chuck, we know Chuck. He was a staple of the Big 12 for years. College football, your thoughts about the loss of Chuck Carlton?
Yeah, really, really sad and just stunned to hear that news this week. Chuck was, as you guys I'm sure have said, like Chuck was just a good dude. He was good to all of us, got along with everybody. I enjoyed seeing him on the road. He and I would certainly come up to Waco a lot during the rise of the program, and always enjoyed seeing him on Mondays and catching up. And Chuck, just a tireless worker. This is someone who just kept working and kept writing, kept reporting while he was battling cancer, and really just the work ethic just unbelievable. But this is a guy who was devoted to his paper and his job, and serving his readers. And so sad that that his life is suddenly over here, and we're going to miss him quite a bit. And still hard to believe that, honestly.
Yeah, it is. Thanks for your time. Max Olson, theathletic.com, covers the transfer portal like a glove and does a lot more, of course, with articles involving college football. Does a great job covering also the Big 12. When we come back,